Hey everybody, what is going on? Welcome back to Disc Golf Chat. Tonight I got quite a pleasure. And first off, if my camera's a little blurry, I literally just brought a new computer today because my old one crashed. It is what it is. But right now we have three-time USDGC champion, which I just went to that course and I fell in love with it. And new Prodigy CEO. Oh, my camera's backwards. Mr. Will Schusterick. Will, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Let me put my glasses back on now. Let's see, my friend Chris is in the chat. Hey, Chris. Let's start off at the beginning. How did you get started in disc golf?
Yeah, I got started with my dad playing in Knoxville, Tennessee. Played a lot of baseball and basketball, traveling growing up, and you get to a point in a certain age that there's really not a lot of organized leagues to go play anymore. And my dad really wanted to kind of find something that we could do together. He was always kind of the coach of the teams that I would be on, and somebody that he worked with said, "Hey, let me give you a couple discs and maybe you and your son can go play disc golf and try it out." And I remember him picking me up and going down there and trying it out for the first time. We played Admiral Farragut in Knoxville. And it's just a little 9-hole course, but it's a lot of fun to play. And I remember playing the first couple holes, and it was just so much fun to throw the disc, figuring out where it went. You got to watch it fly in the air. And then from there, I just kind of learned about a couple different discs, what they do, got connected with the local club. I'd play the junior leagues, and they would give me a free disc every single time I played. And so I knew every single Sunday I'd go play a league and I'd walk away with a free disc. And so I always wanted to come back, which made me want to play the round. And then at the end of the day, I got a free disc. So it was a lot of fun for competition, but then just kind of made me love playing it and just kind of created some friendships and relationships from there and just kind of continued to grow.
So when you first got going, did you have anybody that you kind of looked up to? I mean, obviously dad, but anyone else?
Yeah, I played with a guy named Chris Orick a lot in Knoxville, and he was the top pro back then. There was a lot of other guys locally in Knoxville that I played with that kind of helped me grow up. Honestly, I mean, I played with them on the course. I would hang out with them outside the course, all of it. So I mean, there's a lot of people. One of the main people that I traveled with when I first was growing up, his name was KO or Chris Orick.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Before you started playing, when you were younger, did you have an athletic background or?
Yeah, baseball and basketball were my go-tos. I tried to play football for about a half year, and I was way too small. I was about 4'6" and 80 pounds soaking wet, and there's no way that I could be out there. But I loved baseball, basketball, football, trading cards. I memorized all the stats. I knew of all the teams, all the stats, who played for who, when they started, the year somebody's rookie card was. My dad had just a massive sports card collection of over 100,000 plus sports cards. My bed used to be on a stack of sports cards, like my entire mattress. That was my frame, was boxes of sports cards. And I used to always look through them. I would read through all the Beckett books about what certain cards were worth. I would keep track of eBay. Like that was my thing growing up, was just loving sports cards. And I've always kept track of stats. Like I was a really big stats kid. There you go. Nice. I was a really big stats kid, like just knowing basically any stat of any baseball player, who was leading the league at the time. And I knew after each week how they had changed around. And I love to just keep up with that kind of stuff.
All right. Did you do any fantasy sports?
You know, I never really got into fantasy. Fantasy sports was not really too big whenever I was kind of coming up. But you know, I would get into leagues, and to be honest, this sounds bad or not, but if it's not for money, it's really hard for me to like really care too much about it. Like I have fun with it, and I pay attention to all the stats in the leagues and who's playing and so on and so forth. But I just never got it heavy into fantasy.
Oh, so I mean that sounds so much like me. Way back when I was a kid, I'm older than you by a lot, but back in the late '70s, my mom started getting me baseball cards, and the collecting bug hit, and I've had it all these years.
Yeah. And I love collecting stuff. That's one of my favorite things.
Yeah. Some people say collecting, others say hoarding.
Yeah.
It's not fun. And by
Depends
the
on who you're
way,
asking.
the new Brexton cards are awesome too. By the way, I'm just
They're
saying
really nice. They did a great job on
they
them.
did a great job.
It's cool stuff.
So that's awesome. And as you saw, I got some of the new 2024 baseball cards too. I'm still an addict.
Yeah.
And
No,
not
I love
recovering.
opening packs. It's a lot of fun.
So did you when did you decide to take it to the next level, like amateur events, or did you ever do any amateur events or just go straight pro or what?
Yeah, what's funny is one of my first events was the Memorial in 2006. I played intermediate. I got fourth place. I remember going out there and meeting a lot of players. I remember specifically meeting Chris Sprague and trading him. I remember putting with a KC Pro AVR, and I'm pretty sure he picked it up and he wanted it in his own bag. And I'm pretty sure that he traded me a disc for the disc that I was putting with. And then I specifically remember I still have a disc actually. I might actually have it right here that I got everybody to sign. Yeah.
Wow.
This was from the first tournament that I ever went to.
Oh my goodness.
It's a classic AVR. Like I got all these people to sign it, and it was the 2006 Memorial. It was Nate Doss, Avery Jenkins, Chris Bragg, Ken Climo, Dave Feldberg, and Brad Hammock all signed this disc. And so, yeah, it's I'll never forget that because I remember playing Vista del Camino and Ken Climo was putting on one of the last holes over there. And my big thing when growing up is I watched a VHS of the 2003 USDGC, which that got me into the professional side of disc golf and showed me what it could really be. It showed off, went through, it had some like cool music and highlights of the round. And that was the year that Barry and Climo had the big playoff. And it just really got me excited about professional disc golf. And I went to the USDGC end of 2006 and watched my friend Chris play in the USDGC. And then I think it was Memorial 07 where I saw all these guys play and I saw them in person. I remember walking up to Ken Climo and shaking his hand and say, "Hey, my name is Will." And he just said, "My name is Ken." And that was it. But I remember being a really young kid walking up like I have to meet him. Like he's right there. That's so crazy.
That's so funny because so many things just popped in my mind. But one of the things you just said is I would this year I made it to USDGC for the first time, and walking around the course, it's so magical. It really is. I just see ghosts of shots pass there. But I went over to the where they're selling stuff, and I see Des Redding, and I walk up to her and go, "Hey, how you doing?" I said, "Hey, I know you." She goes, "My name's Des," and I was like, "My name's Daryl." I know you. You don't know me. so that's kind of funny for Ken to do that. That's awesome. That is so awesome. When did you think, you know what, I can compete with these top players?
I continued playing those leagues like I was talking about in 06, 07, in 2000, and I think it was 2007. I won advanced at the Memorial. It's either 2007. Yeah, it was 2007. And I was 13 then, and actually at the end of 2007, I played the USDGC. I'm pretty sure I was 14 years old whenever I played my first USDGC. And so when I had played that event, I knew that I just wanted to continue doing that. I wasn't growing up, and then there were, people were saying like, "Hey, there's a future in professional disc golf," because back then first place was $2,500 for like the biggest event. USDGC was the biggest payout at $7,000 to $10,000 for first place, and that was a one-time only deal that happened throughout the year. Every other one was a national tour where first place was $2,000 or $2,500. Like it wasn't these big time payouts every single weekend that are going on now. So honestly, I just did it for the love of the game. I just loved it more than anything. I wanted to be out there. I would play 6 rounds a day. I'd go to Victor Ashe Park and play anything from 4 to 6 rounds every single day. And that's just what I wanted to do. Like I wanted to be out on the course. I would want to throw 2 to 4 discs a hole. I'd want to keep score, trying to beat my best record. I'd want to throw a putter as far as I possibly could. And I just loved the way to watch it fly. And I didn't just fall in love with the sport because there was a lot of money behind it and it was an opportunity to be a pro. I just fell in love just because I love playing disc golf.
Yeah, I mean, that's I mean, I can't throw. I mean, literally, I can't throw half as far as you. I mean, not even that much. But seeing it fly, it's so pretty. It's so
Yeah.
pretty to see,
Yeah.
and you always want to do better. And that's why someone said sometimes you just don't keep score. I was like, no, I want to beat myself every time. That's my inner competitiveness.
Yeah.
Beat myself. Um, let's see. 2008, you actually officially turned pro.
Yeah, officially turned pro in 2008 because I remember rookie of the year and stuff like that was in 2008. I'm pretty certain. So
Did you win rookie of the year?
no, I got second to Paul Macbeth actually.
Who was that? Wait, did he have the frosted tips at that point?
I think he did. Yeah, he was on the lead card USDGC 2008, and I think I got top 20. I remember him being on the lead card the final day, if I remember.
Wow, wow. I got to go back and see if I can find that one. I have not watched that one. So what was it like when you first? Did you know the course pretty well before you actually went to Winthrop?
I knew it just from the video that I watched. To be honest, like when you watch YouTube videos now, you can just go back and rewind it and watch it over and over again. And then when you go there, you know what it is, right? Like you're sitting on the tee pad and you're like, oh, I've seen this fly through, or I've seen people play it like this before. And so, yeah, I had watched that same video 1,000 times. It's the same thing with Maple Hill. I used to watch the Marshall Street Open or Marshall Street Disc Golf Championship. MSDGC, that's what it was if you look it up, before Maple Hill. And I remember I've seen the video where Steve Brinster aces the castle hole and people go crazy. Wow. Like I've seen all the videos of MSDGC. And again, I used to watch that. I think it was on a burned DVD or a CD at that point. Like it was went from VHS to CD. And again, I knew that course before I got there. And then when I got there, it was like playing something that I had watched 1,000 times.
But was there any holes you looked at and go, that's not what I thought it was going to be like?
Most likely, yeah. I'm sure there was. Maybe hole 5 USDGC is completely different. I would say hole 3. The classic hole 3 going downhill is actually shorter. To me, it's shorter than what you see on camera. Like it's a lot easier to get to the basket because it's it is pretty decently downhill. But just everything, the whole atmosphere, like when you can see holes across the pond, it's a lot different than, when you're on one and you only get one viewing angle. You can actually see 17 from 5. You can see hole 6 and 7 from hole 5's tee pad. So you can see across the entire pond to like multiple holes, and you can see all these people. And then it's even cooler when you see all the spectators across and layered across the entire field. It's a great experience.
Yeah. See, the first day I went, my friend Shelly May was doing her practice round, and she invited me to come and walk along with them. And I had to park over near hole 14, and so I'm walking along 5, and I'm just like, oh look, there's 18 way over there. And I was like, wait, where's 1 in comparison to this?
Yeah, it's cool. Just to be on the property is fun.
Yeah, I mean, I would highly recommend that for everybody to make that pilgrimage, because it's truly incredible. And I actually got to throw a couple shots, so that made it just a dream. I'm not gonna lie. The hole in particular that threw me off was hole 2. It was hole 2, because y'all played from the longs. They've switched now,
right.
But I always thought y'all threw up to that little building and just to the right of that, and then I thought y'all took like a right hand turn. But no, it's basically straight up that hill beside that parking lot. And I was like, wow, it totally threw me off.
Yeah.
Let's go to 2010. The first win at USDGC. Tell me about that.
Yeah, where do you want to start? That's the question, just from the beginning.
You know what? Tell me some of the highlights, through the rounds. If you remember, players you played with and stuff. Because
it's funny, back then that was the first year they introduced stroke and distance, if I remember. So if you went out of bounds anywhere on the entire course, you had to rethrow from the previous lie.
Oh,
if I remember, that was the year that they had stroke and distance on every single hole. Wow. And so if you went out of bounds on hole 2 and you rolled but they had a little bit less out of bounds, so they didn't have the OB up against the fence. You know, that is one thing. The course was almost played completely different because the OBs and stuff that they have now are not even close to how it was back then. It was still difficult. You still had to play through the course, and it was still really hard, but the OB areas were just not the same. You know, the most prominent shot that sticks out in my head is I remember hole 12, which is the one before 888. You know, previous hole 12, they used to play it as a par 5. It's the first hole from the Coliseum going down, and a lot of people go driver. They try to get close to the tree, fade off, and then they attack the hole, and it plays as a par 4 now. They had it as a par 5 back then. Same exact tee pad, exact basket location, but they just changed the par. First of all, I remember Tim Skellinger getting a 2 on it. So he got a 2. He was the first person that actually got an albatross, a 2 on a 5. But the next year they called it a 4. So that I thought that was kind of funny. But anyways, he was the group in front of me. He albatrossed it, and then I came up, and I remember throwing a tee shot, being in a great spot, throwing a second shot, going out of bounds, but then making it on my 4th shot. So I actually made it from like 430 feet plus. But back then there was no live coverage. There was no constant round coverage. So you can't go back and watch round 1 of 2010 USDGC or round 2. There was a final round DVD that they came out with that you can go back, and it was me and Billy Crump who did the commentary for it, which is a lot of fun to watch, because it's just like seeing where the course was back then versus how it is now. Is like some of it is very similar, but a lot of it is completely different.
Yep. I mean, it's like every year I feel like they tweak something.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not bad. Sometimes it's try to add a little bit of difficulty, you know, and some of the times it takes away from what the USDGC is known for. You know, it kind of takes a hole away, or a tree fell, or they change a rule up a little bit. It's all trying, you know, I don't hate that they try to find something to make it more interesting, but also that one is just such a legacy event that it's really hard to mess with that one event.
The 2 holes in particular that I thought about, was like, was the hole 3 you were talking about. I loved watching that little downhill par 3, and then the par 4. Par 4 coming out and around the Mando, basically making a U-turn. They turned that into 1 hole, and the new hole 4 is just that tunnel. Which looks like really, really tight, and it almost feels like, to me, that hole doesn't fit on the course.
Yeah, it's weird. It's almost like you're on you kind of are on a completely different piece of property, because you're on a golf course versus around the lake of the college course. It would be interesting for them to just have the OG course, and I think they would get a lot of people watch OG Winthrop, maybe some increased out of bounds, maybe a little bit tighter, right? Maybe they can make it slightly different pin position, but I think a lot of people would be interested in playing the original Winthrop for USDGC.
What about hole 5? Did you ever play it where the tee pad was almost in the middle of the water?
Yeah, that could have been 2012. I think was the year that they had that there. It was either 2012 or 2013 was when they first had that dock, which they no longer played off of there. But yeah, it was an interesting addition because it was such an iconic hole, and it was weird to move it because the tee shot wasn't anywhere near. It was much easier, actually. I don't think it increased like the visibility of people watching, which I thought that was the thought behind it. It actually made the tee shot easier.
Oh, really? Huh. I had a comment here. Mill's house. Will is on my Mount Rushmore. That's pretty cool, right?
That's really nice.
Well, one of the reasons I actually wanted you on was because I think there's so many players that started in the last 4 years, and they have no idea how good you are. The true legend that you were, and we're going to be talking about that, so we can hopefully educate people on the greatness there. Let's see, what else? Rounds. What was 4 rounds back then? Still, right? It was only 4 rounds. Always been. Okay.
Yeah.
What about round 4?
Of 2010?
Yeah. Yeah, I know that's a long time ago.
Man, that's a long. I don't remember what I did yesterday. You're asking me 2010.
You know, it's funny. I have the thing where I don't know what I did yesterday, but if you ask me 15 years ago, I can tell you almost daily.
Yeah, it's very selective memory.
Yeah.
No, I mean some pieces of that. Some pieces of that I do remember because like I remember getting to the course and not having a shirt to wear and not having a shirt that even said Innova. And of course I remember being there. I was 1,008 or 1,006 rated whenever I won the tournament. Like I was not the lowest rated player by any means, but I was not anywhere near the highest rated player. Like back then, the highest rated player I think was like 1025, 1030. You know, I don't even think we had a player in the 1040s, maybe one or two. But I remember being one of the lower rated 1,000 rated players that are in the tournament. I remember not having a shirt, and I remember getting it screen printed in back then. Dynamic Disc was just a retailer, but they had a screen printer in their RV. I remember getting my shirt screen printed in the Dynamic Disc RV like 30 minutes before my round because I didn't have a shirt that said Innova on my shirt. So I remember that. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Do you remember if you were nervous going into that final round?
Yeah, of course I was nervous. I mean, at that point, I had never even won an A tier event. I had won. I think I came in. I had won 10 other tournaments before, B tier, C tiers, things like that. I had never won an A tier before, and being on the lead card, I think it was probably my first lead card at a major as well in 2010. And I just remember just competing. I mean, I was nervous because I cared a lot and I wanted to do well. But, you know, I had a pretty solid mental plan, I should say, of not going too up, not going too down. I like to always try to stay even keel.
Let's see. I'm looking at the tournament now, and you beat Nico.
Yeah.
I gotta be honest, I'm a big fan of Nico.
Yeah, Nico and I go way back.
Yeah, I mean that is big hair Nico time, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was big hair. That was man, he was the greatest putter on the planet back then. Like just absolutely amazing. Like I remember, you know, really when you think of generations and generations of what started all of these young kids getting into playing disc golf. Nico is almost at the very, very early stages of every single one of these young kids, whether they know it or not. They actually started because Nico was that young kid. He was the 16-year-old, 18-year-old kid. He won USDGC in 2009. He was out there on tour. He was doing what everybody is doing right now. Like he was next level, beating Ken Climo, Barry Schultz, Dave Feldberg, and then it was Nico. And Nico came in and he was dominant. Like he was an amazing player, doing things with this that people have never seen before, throwing shots that people have never seen, making putts from absolutely all over the place. You know, I remember watching videos on like GDStour.com or something like that of Nico putting, and it was amazing. He was one of the best players ever. I mean, he multiple player of the years, and just growing up, I was always watching him. I actually went with him to the Japan Open in 2010, and that was just a great experience.
That's awesome. That is awesome. What about 2012?
Yeah, well, I have to think about it. 2012, man. Well, they didn't have the tournament in 2011, and then I remember 2012. Man, you know what's funny is I just pulled out all my discs that I used to win each USDGC. I still have my putters from each tournament that I won. This is actually the putter I used in 2010 as my main putter to win the USDGC. So I still have this. I have my red PA3 that I used to win the USDGC, and
let's make that big. Let's see those again.
So this was the putter that I used in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2010. I don't have the one from 2012 in my office right here, but I have it at my work office at the Prodigy warehouse. But I'm gonna bring it home and put them on the wall here. But yeah, I do remember 2012, and I remember, man, I have to think. I have to watch it for a minute. Who you have to remind me who even got second or top 4 in 2012.
Let's see.
Crazy, I can't remember.
I'm actually looking that up right now. I feel like you and Paul were at the end of that one. Take my glasses off. I can type better. I meant to actually have this already.
2012. I actually do remember 2012 because I started out in about 60th place after the first round. I didn't shoot an amazing round. I think I actually shot a 4 under first round of the tournament. And then I think I shot just consistent. I didn't shoot anything that was overwhelming. And then that was the year that Josh Anthon shot a 13 or 15 under, I think, on the course and actually came back pretty strong and shot up the leaderboard. But I remember I shot a 4 under, and I think I shot just multiple 9s or 10s. I didn't do anything that was really heavy, like going really far under par, and didn't make any mistakes.
Ricky was second in that one.
That's right. That makes sense. Okay, so that was the year that the documentary I don't know how I could even forget about this. The documentary crew was with me for that. That's actually the year that Shoestrings was filmed. So now that you say that, of course, I remember. My brain just unlocked all these memories after you just reminded me that. So yeah, Shoestrings, the documentary, was filmed during that year, and that, now that you say that, that's a whole lot of memories that I maybe even forgot about, because that was a pretty unbelievable week or a couple months.
To be honest with that I just saw the documentary on, and I got ready to start playing. I was like, oh, I got to get ready. And all I got through was like the first like 30 seconds. It was you and someone else throwing, right? Like the very right before the beginning credits.
It was me and Nico.
I don't think that was Nico.
It was me and Nico throwing.
Really, at the very beginning, because this young man looked like he couldn't throw 20 feet.
Okay, no, not the very beginning. At the very end is Nico and I. At the very beginning is actually the guy who made the music for the documentary. Is they came to Nashville, and they approached me, and they were actually making a documentary for a guy that was a marathon runner. I think he was marathon. He was in the Olympics, and he was taking a break for a couple months. And a guy named Tim sent me a message, and Tim Jeffries sent me a message and said that, hey, we were thinking about making a documentary for disc golf. And at the time, I was the #1 player in the world, and said, we'd like to follow you around the USDGCs in a couple months. I'll fly there. We'll interview you. We'll give the whole story. We'll maybe follow you at a couple tournaments, and then we'll meet you at the USDGC, follow you throughout the USDGC, and put together a documentary. And then they were going to submit it to some short film festivals, which it did actually get played at several short film festivals.
That is so cool. I mean, what was it like when he came to you? Were you like, are you serious? Or because I would be confused. It's like, really? Why?
Yeah. Well, at the time, we actually had and it's really funny. 2012 was when I met my current wife, and so we also did a thing called Nonstop Disc Golf. If you've never heard of that before, you should look up YouTube. You should look up. You said you have not heard of it?
I have not heard of that one.
Oh man, it's gonna make me sound old at this point. But you got to look up on YouTube Nonstop Disc Golf. It was me, Dave Feldberg, Nico LaCastro, and Kale LaVisca traveled around in an RV. And what's funny is we were playing. I lived in Nashville at the time, and we were walking down hole 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at Cedar Hill Disc Golf Course in Nashville, one of the best courses in Tennessee. And a disc fell out of a tree, like actually just fell out and hit Dave Feldberg on the head. And he's like, oh, wow, what are the chances of that? And he picked it up on the inside rim. It said the name James Tennedy, who he said, "Oh yeah, James is in the film industry. Like he's very good at shooting stuff." And we actually reached out to James about coming with us on tour and filming and documenting everything that was going on, because it's 4 of the top players in the world going to. And so we would contact schools. We went to schools and did clinics. He would film us during the round, and then he would create mashups, which is what's really popular. I shouldn't say really popular, but it was popular on YouTube at the time, but it wasn't near as big. Like disc golf wasn't near as big as it was now. But honestly, if we were doing that now, it would be incredibly popular. It might be impossible to do because you can't just go and film yourself playing top tournaments anymore. But right. There were like KC Wide Open NT events from 2012 that had absolutely no footage, no live coverage, none of this stuff. Maybe not that turn specifically, but he had highlights that you can go back and watch, and it was awesome. It had really good music behind it, but he documented everything. And so we had continued doing nonstop disc golf. And then I think that's why Tim reached out to me, is because we kind of stopped doing it near the end of the year. And he said, "Hey, we want to put this together and make more of a documentary style versus a highlight style, and more on the road versus documentary style." And so it was a lot of fun. You got to look up nonstop disc golf.
Yeah, I wrote it down, so that way after this I will definitely
You'll have a lot of fun. It'll be some throwback. Yeah.
That sounds awesome. Let's see. 2011? Did I write that down? Yeah, 2011. You almost got Worlds. You got second in Worlds, and it said at Santa Cruz. I'm assuming that's at De La Vega.
Yeah, they used De La Vega, and that's okay. They used to, what a lot of people don't realize is they used to play 4 to 5 different courses for a world championship. Mm-hmm. And so you would sometimes play 2 rounds in a day, which nowadays doesn't even exist. That doesn't exist anywhere. You would play around and go and have a lunch and actually go play another round during a world championship, which sounds crazy for anybody to like think of a tournament now to have 2 rounds in a day. It doesn't exist anywhere. It exists for small A tiers, B tiers, C tiers, but like disc golf pro tours, world championships, no, it's 1 5-6 hour round. And that was Nate Doss's home tracks where he learned to play disc golf. And I remember playing some of the best disc golf I've ever played before. I remember hitting an ace on camera. So if you look up, 2011 Will Ace, it'll come up. I remember I still have that disc, which was a Star Destroyer. I remember hitting that ace. It was like 430 feet skip shot on camera. It's like super grainy. It looks like it was shot on like a flip phone camera. It's got commentary. You can barely see what's going on. I remember that like it was yesterday. I had, my best friend, Big Andy, caddying for me. I remember he flew out there and turned around and he picked me up in his arms, and I was wearing like cargo shorts or something. I didn't even have on like stretchy shorts that I would never wear those anymore. It's just
That's funny how our closing taste changed through the years. Man, I'm definitely going to look that up too. Man, that's a course I would love to play, but man, it looks rough. Dayla. Do you think they would ever go back to? I'm definitely not 6 rounds and then a nine hole final, but maybe 4 rounds and then a 9 hole or something like that. Or
I mean, it's kind of tough to say. I mean, I like 4 rounds. Mm-hmm. I can maybe see 5. Mm-hmm. I thought there was a tournament that had 5 rounds. But
Worlds has 5.
Worlds has 5. I like the idea of 5 for a major. That still seems like a lot when you look at comparing golf to disc golf. Like disc golf plays a lot faster than just golf. Mm-hmm. Golf, you're having like all day 8-hour rounds. Disc golf obviously is not quite on that level. I don't think it has to be on that level. But it's still an all day round. You can't play 2 rounds in a day. There's just no way. And I liked and disliked the final 9 aspect of it, because you could be winning the tournament throughout the entire time, and then you'd get into the final 9 and then lose in the final 9. And that's not even part of the tournament. Like you're really, and you would play made up holes, which is even crazier. You wouldn't even play a normal 9 holes. You would play safari holes. And so you came into the week playing and practicing all the courses to win. and then you would get into the final 9 and you didn't even know which holes you were playing. And you're playing like from 1 to 2, but there's out of bounds over here and you didn't know, and you're playing for a top tier major or top tournament. And so final 9s are fun, but I like the idea more of the skins matches. Like if you're looking for an expo type deal that show off pro level tournaments and pro level disc golf, I think the best way to do it is before the tournament.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of skins, we'll get back to that. 2014 USDGC. That one, if I'm not mistaken, that is the one of the extra holes, you versus Paul.
Yeah, and Johnny McRae.
Oh, Johnny was in. He just played the first hole, didn't he?
Yeah, but he was still in it. Just
Yeah. By the way, Johnny, underrated. So, tell me about that 2014.
Yeah, again, like it's funny. I think of 2012, 2014, everything just kind of sticks the same same thing. Like once I think of one spot or one shot in the round, then I remember it. But I do remember Johnny owning the entire last round and playing out of his mind.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I remember hole 17. And I remember the opportunity. I remember Paul making a putt from crazy long distance away. And then I remember the last hole as well. I feel like obviously I had 2 missed putts from the tree at the bottom of the hill. Okay, so now see, that unlocked all the other memories.
I was going to say that, but I felt I would feel bad for bringing that up.
Well, that would unlock all the everything else to think about it. And so I always go back there. Yeah. And what made me laugh now is I think ever since then they've elevated that basket or moved the basket on that last hole. So it hasn't been a normal pin position. If maybe one year after that they had it normal, but now every year it's been elevated. So it's a completely different look, because even a 12-footer on that incline looking back up to the basket is crazy, ridiculously hard to make. It's almost near impossible. Which I'm not a huge fan of an elevated basket on a decline like that, because a 10-footer almost becomes impossible to make. But no, I do remember coming down the stretch there, and I remember the playoff. I remember each shot, and yeah, I definitely remember that.
Yeah, I was watching that the other what was it, like a couple of days ago, and I was just like, wow, gosh, because I to be honest, I didn't know who won that, and I was like, oh, Will just blew this one. You missed that at the end of the tournament, you missed that putt coming up the hill. I was like, oh my gosh, he blew that one. Oh no. But wow, it was so much tension watching that.
Yeah.
I mean, how difficult is it to, the last hole of a major, knowing, hey, if I just finish this hole, I can raise the trophy. I mean,
it's different, because it's like if I would have made it, I won, but if I missed it, I didn't lose. So right. I'm not saying that it was that way when I thought about it at the moment. Obviously, you want to make it no matter what. But it's a little bit different when it's a do or die versus if you do miss it, it's okay, right? Like you're okay if you do miss it or don't miss it, and or don't make it. And so it wasn't something that, looking back, I thought of it that way, but it could have made a little bit of a difference, if you know what I'm saying. So but it was interesting. Like I didn't think of it like that. I didn't miss the putt and think I lost the whole tournament, because I continued to play and I was still in it. And so, yeah, looking back on it is I can laugh at it. I laughed at it then. I wasn't just overly mad at myself because I had missed that, because I was still in the tournament.
So they've actually have they lowered the basket there, or they raised
it? Yeah, they raised it by like 4 feet. Yeah, so. Because it's on an incline
up the hill.
It's on an incline like this.
Yeah.
And the basket is here, but it's elevated. So if you're like 10 feet on top of the hill, you're like in line with the basket. But if you're below it, like here, you're putting like way up here. I mean, you're putting directly up 15 feet. And I think my putt was 18 to 22 feet, maybe.
Mm-hmm. It was when I was there and I walked that round. I didn't go down that hill, but I was like, that looks pretty steep.
Yeah, it's a steep hill for sure. It's not a drop in putt by any means.
Yeah. I mean that shot coming up that hill and turning, to me it seems like it takes a lot of just mental power to commit to that shot, to have it going up that hill and kind of slide it down to the basket.
Yeah.
Very tough shot. All right, Skins game. You played the Skins game there. Was it last year?
Yeah, they've only had it. Wasn't last year, it was the year before. Last year I didn't play. The year before is what you're talking about, I think.
So is it 2022 or
2023? 2024 yeah. I was not there. 2023 I was there.
Yeah. So did that bring back any memories of the course, or just how did it feel playing with it was Climo, Schultz, Sexton, and you?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, I know those guys personally, and so it was just fun to put on a show. I think everybody kind of felt that same way. And Barry's such a competitor, Nate's such a competitor. I've played with, I would say I played with Barry more than I played with Ken, and I've probably played with Nate more just because he's been traveling around the same time I have. But I played with Barry a lot. And a lot of people forget that he's got the second most worlds and the second most U.S. titles right behind Ken. Except for Paul, of course. But a lot of people, same thing. Like you're talking about the people they don't know. Barry Schultz is pretty high up on the list of people that they don't know of.
Now Barry played this year USDGC. Will you make a comeback and play USDGC?
I would have played it last year, but I had our daughter in June, and so I really had no time other than to be with her and our 4-year-old son and my wife. So I really just didn't feel like it was a good time for me to go take a week off and be in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And at this stage, I always will put my family first, but it just was not a good timing for me to go drop 7 to 10 days and be there. And as much as I do, and I love being there, I can make the sacrifice and not go.
Yeah, that's what I always tell people. If I ask people to be on the podcast or something, and they say something come up like, "Hey, always put family first. That's number one."
Yeah,
you can do other things, but family first. It's something I strongly believe in, and I'm glad to hear a professional like yourself say, "Hey, you got your priorities."
Yeah.
Let's see. Now, when did you? Why did you retire, or what happened there? Well, maybe not retire, or
sure, yeah, I wouldn't never say that I have officially. I probably wouldn't. I probably wouldn't go on a limb and say that I officially am done playing, because I see playing disc golf for forever. Really, I mean, I think I can play tournaments. I'm not going to go back on tour. I've said it for many years. I'm not going to go buy an RV, hop in there, put my family in, and go back on tour. It's just not going to happen. No. Yeah. There was a combination of things, and a combination of opportunities that happened at Prodigy at the end of 2017, and taking on bigger responsibility, bigger roles, 2018, 2019, and taking a small step from that. And then also I had a shoulder injury at the same time that really prohibited me from being a top player in any way. And so, disc golf, there's not $10,000 for last cash. There's $200, and really you can't survive doing that kind of stuff in any way. And so I could see the future and where I was and what I didn't love to do. And I love playing disc golf, like we were talking earlier. And I don't want to be in disc golf if I don't love playing it. And it felt like I was forcing myself to play when my arm hurt, I had a family, and I wanted to continue my career in the sport doing something outside of it, which I always knew I wanted to do. And it was just time to kind of slowly find other opportunities to do that. And then in 2020, we had our son, and Liam, and he had to have open heart surgery at 2 months old. And so we moved from Dalton to Nashville, and I didn't pick up a disc for 8 months, at least 7 to 8 months. And so maybe I played one round in between then, but No, that was really I wouldn't say the kicker by any means, because there wasn't a chance I was going to go back on tour in 2019 before we even knew we were going to have a son. It just was something that it makes it difficult to commit time, like we were talking about. It's always family first. So going out and playing these pro tour events, you need 10 to 12 days for one tournament, and 10 to 12 days of not being where I am and not being with family are sometimes hard to sacrifice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally understand that. Me and one of my friends, we went to San Diego Comic Con, and we were there like the second day. He was like, "Man, I miss my family."
Yeah,
it's like
2 days in, right?
I was like, "I understand, man. I understand. That's awesome."
Yeah.
And when did you start with Prodigy?
From the very beginning, 2013.
Because I thought I remembered in the 2012 Worlds, they were talking about the beginning of Prodigy.
No, it would have been, we sold our first disc January 1st, 2013.
But I thought they were talking about it coming up, because I remember it was Paul's first Worlds, and I thought you were wearing a Prodigy shirt. You may not have been. You may not have been. May not have been.
That was Charlotte, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, what Prodigy wouldn't have been out about back then, because I specifically remember throwing an Innova disc on the very last hole.
Mm-hmm.
Super high to the right, and the disc was like, the disc is a brick hard Excalibur. Like, I mean, it felt like it was made of concrete. And I remember throwing it up, and that was the shot for the hole. And I remember the wind taking it, and I remember there being hundreds of people behind the basket, and just thinking, like, if somebody is not paying attention, this is gonna be bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember walking up and a guy showing me like his rib cage that I hit him with this disc, and I don't know who it is. And I do remember coming across him or getting a message from him like years later that like reminded me about it, which he was a fine sport about it. So, but yeah, I remember specifically throwing an Innova disc on that last hole, and Prodigy coming out the very early January of 2013.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. So did you just start out as like part owner, or?
Yeah, so we had 10 of the top players in the world at the time, and they all had ownership in the company. And for me, I just came in as a player. And so 2013, I was ranked really high up in the world. Could have been the number one player in the world at the time. I don't remember exactly, but I was just a traveling professional. I didn't really have any job responsibilities in any way other than being a tool for marketing, going out there, promoting the discs. And I remember I won the 2013 Memorial. It was the national tour then. And that was a big deal because we were a manufacturing company that just came out. We really only had 2 discs that were out. And so I obviously was going to throw other discs and fill my bag up with whatever I could. So I remember that started a lot of the disc golf drama, but it was a lot of fun.
Drama. So through the years, you played, and then you started working for them. And I saw something you started in, not accounting.
Sales.
Sales. That's it.
Yeah.
Then it had something to do with money, kind of, sort of. So, I mean, how did you kind of progress from there?
Yeah, I mean, I just naturally from traveling and meeting people for a long time, whether it was tournament directors, store owners, just major influencers that were in the sport. And I started to talk to them about the brand that I was sponsored by, because it was a lot of people were carrying your discs and selling your discs at the time. And so I would want to talk to everybody. I had a piece of the pie. So I wanted Prodigy to do the best it could feasibly do. Mm-hmm. And I just continued to pick up some responsibilities to where just like any sales job, you start to follow up, start to make sure like, hey, how is it going here? They would start to call me and ask me of certain new products that were coming out and how they can get it, so on and so forth. Started getting involved with hosting events, and then coming up with ideas for other people to host events, such as the Par 2, which we come up with. And then I started getting in, and then I started to talk about like player contracts and what we could offer like our entire team, and how we could keep our team together moving forward, and what we could do from a company stance to keep this team together, which these other companies came in and they started paying players a lot more. And they were like, oh, wow, this is going to be very competitive, very fast. And that's when all these other companies started paying players a lot more, was when we started having, I think at the end of the 2-year deal that we had with Prodigy, we started trying to re-sign, and a lot of players were re-signing, players were on our team. And that just created the whole, that whole situation that was going on, and started to create a lot of interest in disc golf. Really, a lot of people started paying attention, not just to playing, but people where they were sponsored to. And it was kind of our fault in a good and bad way, but it was a lot of fun. I really loved being involved with, and I do continue to love being involved with it. But I just like growing. Like, same thing with trading cards, like we've been talking about. Like, I get really tied into and invested into doing stuff, and it's almost like an addiction that you want this thing to be better. You want to show up, you want to make better discs, you want to sell more discs, you want to have really cool releases and have a great company that people like to stand behind.
Now, this leads to this question we had earlier. Sir William of Schusterick. I'm excited for you as CEO. I don't know why that made me laugh so much. Are you ready to talk about your vision for the future of the company?
Yeah, that's pretty broad question. Respect the question, of course. There's nothing that is major that is changing within the structure of Prodigy, but as we've been growing the last several years, I've taken on the responsibilities of a lot of different pieces, and I've had my hands in a lot of different parts of it. But we also have an amazing team that do a lot of amazing work, whether it comes to the marketing, sales, production, fulfillment team. Everything is just slowly getting better, and we continue to strive to get better when it comes, whether it's customer service on the retail side, or order fulfillment on the wholesale side, or production and the quality of discs with the way, all the way down to how the discs look, having more vibrant colors, having better looking stamps to 2-foil. It's just continuing trying to get better and progressing. So you can't wake up tomorrow and say, this is what I'm going to do, and you do 10 things right off the bat. It's not really the position. There's some companies that can kind of do that, but we're really on a good path, and we have a lot of plans. But you need to be 3 to 6 moves in advance and planning those 3 to 6 moves now. So when you get to that point, you're already to the next 3 to 6, and you're continuing to plan things out. And then you can always be more effective when you're planning and scheduling.
Have y'all have any glow discs?
Oh yeah.
See, I didn't know that. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Because this is the first year I played glow disc golf, and I'm kind of like, it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So I'm
funny. Two things I don't like to play: glow golf and mini golf.
Okay, I really like mini golf. Glow, I'm not really too big on so far.
Yeah.
I think the issue is I cannot get my distance control on anything. It just I have no depth perception on it at all.
I think it's a lot. I've played glow golf before, and I think it's just a fun experience. You need to be on the right course. Without a doubt, you got to be on the right course.
Mm-hmm. My friend Chris, he kind of runs a local league around here. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to throw that question in here. He didn't ask me, but I threw it in. Okay. Let's see. Prodigy CEO got that. All right. I'm going to run through some players and tell me if you have any stories about them. Some of them I think you've played with, some of them you may not have, but I believe you've played with pretty much everybody on here, I think.
Okay.
We'll start off with Steven Rico.
Steve Rico.
Mm-hmm.
I love that guy. He's a really good player. Again, another person that a lot of people don't know about.
Yes.
Him and Matt Oram, I'm pretty certain, were some of the youngest up and coming players way back in the day. And he was just a certified stud. I used to watch him at the first. A lot of people won't know this, but he won the first PDGA National Tour at La Mirada. And I remember watching a DVD of him playing, and then his brother Bomba Rico. Shout out to them both, because they're both awesome people from California. I remember them playing and watching Steve Rico lay down rollers with another guy named Ken Jarvis, playing against Ken Climo. And I think Barry Schultz was on the card too, but I remember watching that, and it was the first commentated disc golf footage from the very first PDGA National Tour. And it was like one DVD, but it would show you the La Mirada, and then I think it took you to Minnesota.
Wow.
And I think it took you to somewhere else, but it was not like multiple videos. It was one video to show you the whole national tour. And Steve Riney goes on the lead card of every single one of those, just dominating. But yeah, I've played with Steve many times, love to play with him, and he's a great competitor with an amazing history in the sport.
Yeah, because every time it seems like I watch some of those older videos, I'm like, there he is again.
Somebody needs to find these videos and post them online. 2000 and I'm pretty sure it's 2003, maybe it's 2002, the first PGA National Tour.
Someone actually just threw this question in because it kind of goes back to the business aspect of it. Is it easier to make money selling discs or selling baskets, or is Prodigy more of a disc company or of a basket company? So kind of two different questions.
Sure. Yeah. Easier, I think, is a hard question to answer because you really only need to sell 40 discs to get to one basket. So is it easier to sell 40, call it 50 discs, or is it easy to sell one basket? I will say that we sell a lot of baskets and we sell a lot of discs. We make discs on site. We don't make baskets in our warehouse. It's a lot easier to sell discs for sure because the cost to get them, you always need a new disc. Somebody's always going to need a new putter. When it comes to baskets, it's not necessarily hard, but you do still have to find the parks and rec or the courses that are going in the ground or they're being contacted by you. And I would say it's easier to sell discs. We're both. We're a disc company, a basket company, a bag company. Like, Dalton, Georgia is the turf capital of the world. So we offer a lot of turf tee pads that come from basically 5 minutes away from where our warehouse is. So we're really a full solutions disc golf company. We don't just do one or the other.
Is it easier to sell 18 baskets or 18 discs at once?
18 discs. I think you mean 900. It would be 900 discs.
Well, no, I'm just saying, is anybody coming and go, okay, I'm going to have a course, so I need 18 baskets. I just need 18 discs. Because 18 discs at one time seems like a lot to me. I can see.
Not as much as you would think.
Really?
Yeah, 18 discs. I mean, we have a lot of people that are doing that. But no, the 18 baskets, they do go in the ground a lot. There's so many courses being installed. And for a long time, it was the stat was 4 courses a day were being installed across the world. And so that's 72 baskets a day when you think about it. And that's a lot to service. And there's a lot out there. So when it comes to the sales aspect side of it, and you're coming in and you're looking for that motivation of selling baskets, there's 4 courses going in the ground. You can find one of them a day.
Yep. And Chris, my friend, is actually in the process of putting in his own course. So there you go.
That's awesome. Well, we'd love to help him if he wants to send me a message.
There you go. Right there, Chris. Okay, back to the players. Let's see. I'll read this. I don't know what that last part means. What happens to baskets when they reach EOL? I don't know what EOL is.
Maybe end of life? I'm not sure, actually.
I like the sound of that.
I'm just taking a guess. I'm not sure, but it is they're all made of steel. So you could, I guess, in theory, if you wanted to take it. And unfortunately, when baskets get stolen, it's because they can take it down to a recycling center and get money for it. Unfortunately. But yeah, that's what I would assume the only end of it. But I mean, baskets can last a really long time. They can last 30 plus years being installed in a permanent park outside situation.
Okay. I will ask that one later. Let's go back to the players. The GOAT, Ken Climo. My opinion, the GOAT. Some people don't agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, Ken, like I said, Ken, when I first met Ken, it was nearly my first disc golf tournament. I remember walking up to him and just wanting to meet him and being 13. I don't know what I'm going to say to, what he is, the best disc golfer in the world at that point. Like, I'm just walking him and I just said, hey, my name is Will. And he just said, nice to meet you. I'm Ken. And that was it. And I just walked away. Like there was no conversation. I didn't ask him anything. I just walked up, met him, and walked away. But I've known Ken for quite a while. He didn't really play a whole lot while I traveled and toured. I remember him winning Pro Worlds in Augusta in 2006. And I remember watching that footage because that was like, I got into disc golf in maybe September 2006. So I didn't play a lot at the end of that year, but I remember he was that world's champion that year. But no, again, he's one of the most competitive people, man, I would almost say in the world. Like he wants to win no matter what. Like he has that demeanor that he's going to beat you no matter whether he's throwing left-handed or with his feet. He's going to find a way to win.
Now, I will tell you this. When we talked about doing the podcast for a couple of weeks now, and you messaged me and you said, we've got something coming up, so can we put this off? And my honest first thought was, wait, Climo just left. Is Will leaving? That was my first thought. I was like, no, he's not leaving Prodigy.
Yeah.
But CEO, that's a pretty awesome announcement. Barry Schultz.
Yeah, again, like Barry competed, and I think he was the one. It was either Barry or Ron Russell that ended Ken's 7 to 8 world championships in a row. I played with Barry many times, including one of my first ever pro events, maybe my first ever pro card. I remember playing with, I think it was him and Kim Scott Wood, who was the rookie of the year in 2006. Maybe it was 2007 at the Brent Hambrick Memorial in Ohio. And that used to be one of the big PDGA national tours. And I remember playing with Barry. He didn't have a great round, but I remember playing with him. Like, I think he was the returning world champion. I think he won worlds in 2005, and I played on a card with him in 2006. And I remember playing the Brent Hambrick Memorial, which the course was the exact same for 10 plus years. They don't play that course anymore or they don't play the NT there. They do play the course, obviously. But yeah, I remember that was my original thing. And then I remember playing with him for many USDGCs in a row. It almost seemed like him and I were on the same card for years and years going on. And yeah, I've always liked playing with Barry because he's very competitive, but he is a really nice guy.
He seems like he's very competitive and just like a gentleman's gentleman out there.
Yeah.
He really seems like that to me. Avery Jenkins.
Yeah, similar. Like Avery, I would say similar to Barry, or sorry, similar to Ken, is Avery didn't travel and tour as much when I started to get into traveling touring. I know that he won worlds in 2009. I remember missing pro worlds in 2009 because I had to go to a summer school for my English class because I missed classes during the year for disc golf tournaments. So because I missed tournaments in a year, I had to come back and go to English classes. So then I missed the worlds, which I hated because I was having a good year and I wanted to go there and play in Kansas City. But no, I think Avery has been one of the top promoters in the sport. And again, one of the things that got me into wanting to do instructional videos was the stuff that Avery was putting out there, like a lot of the Deep in the Game. A lot of people might not even know about that, but he had a video instructional series called Deep in the Game. And it was deep in the game of disc golf, just talking about upshot, driving, putting, all that kind of stuff. But no, Avery said something to me a long time ago that I really kind of have continued to think about is like, disc golfers have to always continue to be approachable. And it makes a big deal when a fan can send you a message and they send you a message back. And it just continues to grow people wanting to be fans of a professional sport without being so standoffish. Like, you know, we're fortunately and maybe not unfortunately to the side of having millions and millions of social media followers that they're like tracking you down while you're at the grocery store. But it's really great that disc golf is such an approachable sport when it comes to the professional side. And so I've always thought about that whenever he brought it up, and always try to make a point to say something to people whenever they say that they're a fan of mine or they've always followed me. So I think that means a lot. And a lot of people don't even know who Avery is, which is crazy. But he's one of the top promoters the sport has ever seen, I would say.
The family dynasty.
Yeah, and that too.
Yeah, him, Valerie, and Nate.
Yeah.
It's like two dynasties.
Yeah.
I did one of the things. I met him for the first time this year. I know he's a big guy. When I met him in person, like he's a big guy.
Yeah.
Not, I don't mean like a fat guy. I mean he's just like a stout dude. I was like,
Yeah.
hey. Like, oh, that was really cool. Because when I first saw him, I was like, nah, he's not that big. Oh my gosh, he is.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really cool. Nico, we already talked about Nico, so we won't go back there. Matty O.
Yeah, Matty O and I didn't ever like travel together a whole lot, but we did. I've played with him many, many times. He was early on the youngest person that would be playing the USDGC, like I was talking about with Steve Rico. He might be the person that has been on tour the longest. Like if you look it up, he has been playing absolutely forever. And I met him and his dad, Jim Oram, who actually started the Southern Nationals Disc Golf Championship, and Southern Nationals Tour League. I can't remember what it is, but it's basically like a parallel to the PGA, and it ran a lot of tournaments in the South, like almost in Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana area. And Jim was just known for just a pioneer of the sport, really. And I remember meeting them at the Lee Naquin in Memphis, Tennessee in 2007. I remember watching Matt, who was he's still older than me, but I don't think that he's master's age. So he's maybe 5-6 years older than me. So at the time he was probably 19 or 20 and I was probably 13.
Wow.
So I remember watching him crush and win. And I mean, I think he won the tournament and won any tournament around Southern Nationals back then. He finished second in Worlds in 2002 to Nate Doss, who I think was 19 at the time. And Matt was also really young as well. But again, I think he's probably somebody that has been on tour the longest out of everybody. It's got to be pretty close when you look across the board, because he's been doing the same thing for forever.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching an old video, and it was like 2006 or 7. It was back when he had the baseball jersey on playing.
Yep.
It's like great day.
He played final round. I want to say final round USDGC. He had a Derek Jeter jersey on, but it could have been a New York. It could have been a New York hat at that I'm thinking of. But there's only
a Mets guy, so
there's not a lot of footage back then, so it's hard for me to really think about it because I could have just seen one shot.
Yeah, I'm a Mets guy, so boo on the Yankees. Well, we did just sign a guy for $276 million. No, $770.
Yeah, $765
million.
Fully guaranteed.
Hey, it ain't my money. Nate Doss.
Yeah, Nate. One of my favorite, I would say, funny stats is 2011. I finished in top 4 at. I'm pretty certain top 4 at every major and every national tour, and Nate Doss beat me at every single one of them. But when he could get on fire, he would make it from anywhere within 90 feet with like no questions asked. Like he was, again, when you're on that level, you have to be an unbelievable competitor, and Nate was an unbelievable competitor. Again, young and up and coming, somebody who kind of started a whole nother group of people behind him coming up and wanting to be competitors and be better because he showed off the professional side of disc golf in an amazing way.
Paul Ulibarri.
Man, going down the whole line right now.
I got a list of players.
You got a whole list of names.
I do.
Yeah, Paul and I go way back. Again, he's been on tour maybe longer than nearly everybody. I've got a really funny story. I have a story with everybody, obviously, but at this point, yeah, Paul is really funny. I met him at what I was just talking about, the 2006 Memorial. He lived in Phoenix, Arizona. I flew out there with my dad. I remember the tournament ended, and I was out on Vista del Camino just throwing shots. And I was watching this kid at the time run up with this kind of funky, goofy, not even an X step, and he would be bombing it. He would throw it way out to the left on this giant Anheuser, big, crazy flex shots. And I couldn't even believe what I was watching. Like, it was unbelievable. And I just wanted to follow and continue to play with him. And he was playing with his buddy, and I think his dad was walking around. And I was with my dad, and I was a little 12, 13-year-old kid, just like wanting to watch this guy throw amazing, crazy distance shots. And so I met him. We played a couple holes and met him. And then later on, they had a website called discgolftv.com, which I'm sure not a lot of people know about, ran by Alan Henson-Begg from Minnesota, which that footage needs to be unarchived somehow, some way. But I remember watching each week, it would come out with these highlights of top tournaments, and Worlds had just happened, and I'm waiting for the footage to pop up on discgolftv.com, and I would always check back every single day, waiting for footage, because it was just highlights. There was nothing else to watch.
Yeah.
And I remember watching the last hole and talking about, I think he went into a playoff. All of a sudden I see this crazy long 60-foot putt, 50, 60-foot putt, and it's Paul Ulibarri that runs out of the woods. I'm like, oh, that's the person that I played with at Vista del Camino. What are the chances of that? And so we won in Worlds that year. And then, ever since then, we've always traveled to the same tournaments. We've been around the same people. We've played on the same cards. Like, I would say I'm pretty close with Paul. I've known him for a long time and traveled and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
So you knew him before he could grow that famous mustache.
Yeah. It's crazy how that worked out.
Nate Sexton.
I'm pretty sure I met Nate Sexton's brother before I met Nate Sexton, but I remember playing with Nate Sexton in the USDGC pretty early on. I don't remember what year. Obviously, I can't remember years that I have won the USDGC, but no, I remember playing with him pretty early on. We didn't play a whole lot together because he really traveled way more when I kind of started to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
In like 2016, 2017, he started to travel and play way more than I did. And then even the year he won USDGC, I wasn't even at the event. So I don't have a crazy long history with Nate. We've played together a lot, of course, but I don't have a history like I do with the people you've already mentioned.
Mm-hmm. And just two more. Ricky Wysocki. Excuse me, Richard.
No, I've known Ricky for a really, really long time. Like, I remember staying at Dave Feldberg's house and flying to Europe for a month while Ricky stayed at Dave's house. And I think he stayed behind while we went to Europe. I'm pretty sure that was the case. And I remember him going to, I think it was, he stayed there and went to a Utah tournament. But I've traveled with Rick. I've stayed in the same places with Rick. Again, Rick shows the same competitive grind that all those other people that you have mentioned before, that he wants to win. And he also practices more than anybody you could ever believe. And so, for all the young disc golfers that want to be better and they want to be the number one player in the world, just watch what Ricky Wysocki does on a daily basis, and you'll understand what type of practice it takes. Like, if you're sleeping in past 8 o'clock, you're already losing. You got to be practicing more than the other person. So you got to be out there grinding away. And Ricky can grind it out more than anybody.
Mm-hmm. I would like to know what could have happened those like couple years when Lyme disease really got a hold of him, because I mean, he's like, I feel like the past year he's kind of really gotten over that, and he's gone back to like pre-2020 Ricky. It's incredible to watch.
Yeah, it's Ricky really is an unbelievable competitor, and he obviously had a really good end of the season. And again, he's just amazing competitor. There's really not much else to say, and a really nice guy.
And no one runs one down better than him.
Yeah, for sure.
After legs.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned somebody, made me think of one other person, so I've got two people.
Okay.
Well, you mentioned Dave Feldberg. I didn't even think about asking about him.
Yeah, again, another player that a lot of people don't know about because it was like pre-YouTube era.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he was the first person that had ever won all the majors. He won every single one, from Japan Open, which Steve Rico won, Japan Open, USDGC Worlds, European Open. There was something else too, but I'm pretty sure he was the first person to win every single major. not just Worlds and USDGC, when they started coming out with all these European Open and all these other additional majors. He was one of the first ones to do that. But again, just a crazy competitor. And he kind of introduced that step putt to where a lot of people brought into it. It wasn't really as prominent until I would say he started doing it more on a major stage for lead cards, so on and so forth, for a lot of people to watch. And again, he could throw some crazy shots that people have never seen before. He kind of brought a whole different aspect to it. He would also do a lot of clinics. You know, we were on the Nonstop Disc Golf tour, and he did a lot of clinics. There's a lot of things that he did that I enjoyed. And yeah, again, being a competitor. Might have lost him. I think it just became my live stream.
Randomly, my laptop just shut down.
That's
Sorry
right.
about that. Sorry about that. If it happens again, I don't even know. I didn't even touch anything. Oh, well. Anyway, did I miss anything?
No, I think that was kind of the end of it. I just said that it's now my live stream that you logged off.
And last, the McBeast, Paul McBeth.
Yeah, again, we have a pretty long history. I think it was there was a website that was called Disc Golfers R Us way back in the day. I think that was like 2007, 2008, where we first kind of started talking. It was before Facebook had Messenger and all that kind of stuff too. But yeah, again, just a big competitor. Like it's hard to really say much else. We traveled and toured a little bit together, not like a bunch, but maybe a couple of years early on, like 2009, we traveled a little bit together. 2010, we traveled a little bit together, but from then, like it was just a lot of competing against one another on the same card. But again, it was obviously maybe the top competitor out there. All those guys put in a lot of effort, and it shows how much Paul has put in with the amount of effort and the amount of titles that he's won. So there's a lot to say about that.
I mean, what was it like during that 4-year, 5-year period? You, Ricky, and Paul. Because I mean, y'all were 3 really up and coming young guns out there, just coming and kind of taking over from where like Climo and Dawson and players were. Kind of jumped in around that at the end of their time, kind of. Well, I guess Dawson was still going pretty well at that time. But I mean, what was it like y'all kind of going at it?
Yeah, I mean, it was everybody was kind of doing their thing. Everybody was practicing as hard as they could practice, and they were trying to learn the course, trying to learn their disc, trying to build their confidence up as much as they could. And everybody had their own weekend. Everybody had their own time in the spotlight, and it was just a lot of fun. I mean, that was really, you know, the peak of my career during those years. And it's just a lot of fun when you're hitting on all cylinders and competing, and you have fans following you around everywhere you go. It's just a blast.
Did you ever think, if I beat these 2 guys, there's a real good chance I'm winning?
No, you don't really think of it like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're out there competing against the course, and you're trying to throw the best shot on every single hole. And I felt like I could throw it within 15 feet of every single hole that had ever existed. No matter what the shape was, I felt like I could control any disc to get within distance of making putts. I was never known to make extremely long putts, but if I made 95% of my putts inside the circle, then I felt like I was going to win the tournament.
Mm-hmm. That to me, I think is a good goal right there. 90 plus. And you're going to be up there pretty well.
Yeah.
What's it like with working with the next generation of players? Are you working much with them with Prodigy and everything? Just in general, not necessarily just with Prodigy, but in general.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's the same in a sense. You know, the sport is still the sport. Still takes a lot of practice. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that has changed in that sense. Like you're not doing. There's no secret sauce that didn't exist 10 years ago. It still is. You got to grind out being on the road, being on tour. I think a little bit of a difference is the way that Tournaments are held in the sense of they're now one round versus, you could call it marathon golf, where you're playing 5 rounds or even four to 5 rounds every single tournament you play. It's a little bit different too, because every tournament has a lot of money. Every tournament is the USDGC that I played in 2010. And so you got to bring it every single weekend. There's no weekend where you're playing 2 B tiers and then you have a weekend off, and then the national tour was 7 weeks away from the previous one. Like, it's almost every other week you're playing for a lot of money on a pretty high stage and in front of a live crowd with 2,000 spectators. It wasn't like that whenever I traveled. It was very much an NT. 7 or 8 weeks later, you had another NT, and maybe 4 weeks later, another NT was coming up, and you would fill it in with these other events. And it was just different back then.
Nice. Chris wants to know, what do you think is helpful to get youngsters playing?
Getting them the right disc is, I think, one of the most important things for somebody to get into playing disc golf. You can't give them a really overstable driver and expect them to continue playing. They got to get started off on the right foot. They need a lightweight, understable putter to go out there and see the disc fly. And then once they catch on to, okay, that's how a disc flies, like, they get a sense of satisfaction. They see a disc go in the basket and they feel that sense of satisfaction that they want to come back and they want to continue to play and learn more about it. But if they go out there and they just get demoralized, you're not going to want to come back and play.
Yep, totally agree. What about the females? What's a way to get more females into the game?
Exactly what I just said, to be honest. I feel like they just need to be introduced in the right way. Like, every single person is going to be the same type of thing. You can't expect somebody to go out and play basketball, and if you can't make a basket because the basket is 20 feet high or the basketball is 20 pounds, it's not going to be fun. Like, that's not a fun game to play at all. The reason why pickleball has taken off so fast is because it's accessible to absolutely everybody in every single demographic. And disc golf can fit that same realm. It's just not played on a previous tennis court, which there's tens of thousands of them across the country. It's a little bit of a different aspect, of course, but disc golf can still introduce every single type of demographic into their into the sport by just getting into them the right way. And that's a little bit difficult because there's so many different discs, so many different plastics, so many different weights that a beginner has to do a little bit of research before they even buy their first disc. And that's kind of hard to do sometimes. You really, if nobody has ever played disc golf before and they go and buy just a random disc, most likely they're not going to enjoy throwing that disc. It's a most likely scenario.
All right. Well, I first started in about 2006 or 7. And one of my friends, we went down to the local plate again. He's like, just grab a driver, grab a mid-range, and grab a putter. It's all you're going to need. And I looked, I was like, what do these numbers mean? He goes, you don't need to know that. I didn't play long.
Right.
So what do you think do you think the biggest difference in people, how they're getting better faster, do you think it's more technology or more stuff like YouTube?
YouTube helps a lot. I mean, I have learned so many things from just watching YouTube alone. And you can be a YouTube professional in a couple hours. When it came to me as a 12, 13-year-old, I didn't know, if it wasn't for the VHS, which I feel really old saying VHS, if it wasn't for that, then I don't know how I would ever know about professional disc golf ever. I would never know about it. And so now, because of YouTube, you can go in and just say professional disc golf, and you can watch somebody throw it 500 feet in 10 seconds later. And so the accessibility, just to know what that is, I think makes a major difference for the learning curve. And then I don't think it's necessarily the technology, the disc technology and that kind of stuff is nearly the same from what it was, 5 years ago or so. So I don't think it's necessarily that. I think it's a lot of accessibility to what pro disc golf is.
How about technology from when you started to now?
I remember my friend in middle school coming up to me and showing me like a printout that the Wraith had just came out in middle school. And so that was like the first 11-speed disc, I think, if I remember. So, that I had that disc throughout my entire playing career, and that's still a popular disc. The technology now is so much different, actually, when it comes to the aesthetics of how discs look. Two-color foil stamping was not a thing back then. Swirly discs were not what you would call swirly discs now in any sense. There was no, I had actually seen an overmold disc at a Bowling Green AMs in 2007. So it was kind of around, but not a lot. The technology was similar, obviously the Wraith is still a prominent disc in 2006 as it was now. There's so many different companies that are making discs because the sport has just grown and there's so much opportunity in a market that is like disc golf. That's an emerging sport market. But in all honesty, I think it's not necessarily the technology of the discs flying, but it's more of just the way they look.
Last few questions. What is your favorite course?
That's tough. I have a lot of favorite courses. It depends on where you are and what part of the country, maybe what country. But I've always said that Järva in Stockholm, Sweden is one of my favorite courses.
What's the difference between playing in Europe to playing in America, like tournaments in particular?
Everybody's demeanor is a little bit different. Like Parks and Rec in Europe is a little bit different than Parks and Rec in the US. Like Järva is a privately held course, if I remember. And so, they're mowing the fairways like a disc golf fairway, like a golf fairway. And so it just looks different. Same thing with, the way people act and when they come to tournaments is Europeans are just a little bit different than Americans, the way they act, like not in anything that's even notable, but you can just tell a difference between having a crowd on the European tour versus the maybe the Disc Golf Pro Tour.
I remember, how many years ago was it? Like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe longer than that. Paul was it was an event in Europe, and he was like, one day we're going to have these crowds in America. It was just huge crowds.
Yeah, huge crowds. Now you got to think that professional sports are not near as big in those. They don't have the MLB, NFL, NBA in Finland, Sweden. So
yeah, that's one of the things I always thought is like, well, when anything goes over there that's popular, everybody's going to want to see it because they don't get it all the time. So yeah, I get that. Let's see. If you could pick your dream card to be on, or maybe when you decide to officially hang it up, then you could pick who was on that card with you, who would you pick?
It's tough because no offense to any top pros, but I probably wouldn't pick any of the top pros. Like I wouldn't pick pros that have that I've been playing with forever. I would pick some of my friends that I just love playing with. So
hey, if they're in the tournament, they count.
Yeah, they can be in. If I'm thinking of the dream card, I'm no offense to any top pro, but I'm picking people that I love to play with them, but I really love to play with my friends. So I'm gonna pick my friends over playing with who the top 10 players in the world are.
Do you still attend any events that you're not playing in?
Every now and then I'll go to the tournament if Prodigy is the title sponsor, I would be there. But I'm not going to go out of my way to be at a tournament if Prodigy's not the title sponsor or we're setting up and vending or there's some big thing going on. If I'm going to go to an event, like I would just show up at USDGC. I think I went one year. I think I went a couple years ago to watch, or maybe I just ended up playing. But I'm going to end up playing the event. Like I love disc golf, but I don't like to sit around and watch it all day.
Yes, me and Chris, we're kind of right now tentatively trying to maybe go to the Music City Open this year.
Ah, cool, yeah.
So that and USDGC, we'll definitely try to go back to that. Players Championship is right here in Lynchburg again this year. Well, not again, but this year. So it's in my hometown, so I have to go to that.
Yeah, for sure.
I have a couple questions, and this one, I don't know, it made me laugh. Did Prodigy engineer Gannon-Buhr in a lab before releasing him onto the wild?
Yeah, it's crazy how good he's gotten. And again, you should look up him from years ago. I've got a picture of when he won Junior Worlds. And he was he wasn't taller than me. Let's just say that. And I remember, I think he won by 20, 30 strokes or something crazy like that. But no, he's always been a a great player. Like when you watch him, you can just kind of see the structure of him putting together and trying to throw it far. And now he's picked up like 3 feet from when he was, from when I knew him back then, and he can throw it another 300 feet plus than from where he could. But yeah, it's pretty unbelievable. He's built for disc golf. That's for sure.
Yeah. I saw something when he first come out, and this is how dumb I can be. It's one of those things, you think something, and then you think like 2 seconds later, he goes, well, that was just stupid. I was like, Gannon Burr, I wonder if he's related to Missy Gannon. Oh, that's just dumb. So yeah, that's on me. That's on me. Difference in I will put this on there because it was put in here, but I find this to be ridiculous. Is it because Americans are all fat?
For what? I don't care.
For like some of the differences between Europeans and Americans. I'm like, well, hey,
no.
I resemble that remark. Favorite Ohio course? My friend Todd. Hi, Todd.
I haven't played a lot of courses in Ohio. I think I played the course that is on Lake. I think it's Lake Erie. Is Lake Erie at the north part of Ohio? I'm pretty certain that I played a course that was right there, right on the lake, and I think that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a really nice course. It was pretty sweet. We stopped on the way in, and it was fun to play.
Here in Virginia, you play much here?
Virginia, I've actually played in Lynchburg. I've played the courses at Liberty. I've played the Blockhouse. I've played. I would like to go. There's the private course at Lake Marshall that I would really love to go to, but I have not been to yet.
Yeah, that's one I definitely want to go to at some point. Yeah. It's way like northeast from here, so I definitely want to do that at some point. And Todd was like, "Yes, it's in the north." Yes,
gotcha.
So I think that's all the questions I had. You got anything else?
No, I did not have anything. We really went deep on it.
Well, I normally deep. I mean, it's like it's one of those things that like I wanted to cover as much as I could, and the reason I always ask about like players, like stories from players to players, is because us guys on the outside, we don't get to experience, the interactions that you guys are having, unless maybe we're a caddy for a day. But
sure,
yeah, it's always cool to hear those stories, and I definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, I like to talk about it. It's fun.
But you know what? I do have one other question. Do you guys have any like charitable things?
What do you mean? Give me an example of what you mean.
Let's say let's say for example, like a school was building a course. Would y'all do any donating to help or or people?
Yeah, we have done that before. Of course, we get asked, as being a manufacturing company, we get asked every single day for donations. So you have to end up being selective on who you support. Like I would love to be able to support everybody in every function, but unfortunately, it's not always possible to do that. But we've always tried to go out of our way to especially help schools, because that's really what's going to help the sport grow.
Yeah, and my friend Chris, he was like, he was wondering if he. Now, I'm not asking you. I want this understood. But he's like there was somebody because he's going to start trying to work with schools and doing like some youth events and trying to get some lightweight plastic to help the kids.
Yeah, that's a great way to do it. Besides that kind of stuff, like we've ran 2 fundraisers last year. We did a fundraiser for the Maui wildfire, and then 2 years ago we did that, and then last year we did the Asheville fundraiser. And each time we raised a pretty significant amount of money. I think for each one, I think was near or more than $8,000 to $10,000 for each one to each of those organizations. And so just using a platform, I think is a good opportunity to help people that are in need.
That is awesome. I always love to hear when people try to give back. We can't do everything, but we can try to do the best we can, and that's awesome.
For sure.
First off, thank you so much. And something I always tell people, there's one thing you can never get back once it's gone, and that's your time. And I appreciate you sharing your time with me and everyone here on my channel. It really means a lot to me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Nice to meet you too.
Oh, it's great to meet you. And hopefully at some point I get to see you in person, because I always like to shake people's hands.
All right. We'll make a point of it.
That's right. And that's all we got. And you guys Have an incredible day.